So today, in People That Surf, which I just made up, by the way, right?
Yeah.
30 seconds ago.
It's a good name.
It's not a plotted out scheme. It's
Nope.
just off the cuff program here. So this is my friend Jacob from San Clemente. Just sort of newly moved up into the area like a couple of years ago.
Maybe about 3 years now.
And we've been working on a board together the last couple of years. It's been super cool. And how we met was cool too, because we just met surfing.
Yeah.
So this is the coolest way, you know, in our tribe, how everybody gets to know each other is just out in the water or on the sidewalk and, hey, what board is that? Hey, I just moved here. Is this, you know? And so it was one of those things. I think we were pretty fresh here. And me and Ricky, my friend Ricky, I remember we were going surfing and Ricky was like, hey, I know you from lowers, because just lower stalwart, right?
I've grown up surfing lowers with Ricky all the time, so he'd always be riding Todd's board and always be kind of side-eyeing going, oh, what's Ricky on? Ricky's ripping pretty hard on that. So.
And friends with Jake Davis,
yep, of course.
And the boys down there, the Carters, and so I remember we were like, hey, yeah, come surf with us, bro, it's pumping, and I don't know if you didn't have a board or your board was buckled or something. I was like, dude, I got boards. Come look at the back of the truck.
I think I had boards, but I've been wanting to try your boards. And
okay.
Todd was kind enough to let me go in his truck to his little candy shop and looked in there and saw what I wanted. And Todd's like, go take it out. So
I usually keep it pretty, at least the last couple of years, I've kept that pretty full in there with boards.
The candy shop, the Proctor candy shop.
And so I remember those, a zip stitch. And I was like, that's cool. This kid seems pretty cool. We paddled out, and then I was like, somebody's flying down the line from deep. Who is this? And I remember pulling back, and I'm like, hey, that's that kid I let borrow a board. And it was like, bam, bam, bam. I'm like, Ricky, that kid surfs pretty good. He said, oh yeah, Jacob, he rips. And I'm like, oh, wow, this is cool. And so from there, then we started working on boards together, getting Jacob on boards custom tuned just for him, and kind of the first home run was the Twinstitch.
Yep.
And back then it was still a new board for me. It was the Twinstitch. We call it now the version 1. And this magic board, what we're going to be talking about, this is the version 4. But before that, it was the version 1, which is still a Super Nukes board. And it's like a high performance twin fin. And you go to the 2+1 setup. This one has really heavy concaves and a pretty straight tail rocker, so it's just that out of the gates speed machine. And this was the first model that you rode, and you went crazy on this one too, the big wax.
Yeah, the first session I had was out at Lowers, and I could remember one of my first waves I took off on. And straight into a first carve, to a little blowtail, to a carve, and Jonah was actually on the beach, and I think that's before Jonah was riding your boards.
No way.
And Jonah came over and was like, what's this? You know, because obviously Jake had been chirping, and that was my first experience on the Twinstitch, was over at Lowers with all the boys. So
that was the start path. And then I remember you came in and you were like, yeah, I got a few pictures, you can have them if you want. And I'm like, okay, yeah, they'll probably be, you know. And then I'm looking, I was like, dude, that looks like an Andy Irons carve. And the layback one.
Yep.
I was like, dude, these are insane. Thanks, bro. And so, but from there, we're kind of like, hey, let's see if we can. That one did the like big gouge carve and the speed line stuff really good. But I wanted to see, because I could see in his surfing was just begging for with your approach coming off the bottom. I'm like, you know what? Let's see if we can get the board to pull it back over about 2 feet into like where the lip's coming down up in there, and tag that, and then release the tail and do those same like carve buckets, but just over here. Boom. And so we're like, let's take some of the heavy concave out and let's bend a little more tail rocker in, and that's where we came up with this one. So in that process, we had version 1, 2, and 3, and then what we finally settled on when we tuned just the right tail rocker from like here back, you could compare to the other one, it's just got a little more sweep, about a 1/4 inch more tail rocker from between the feet back. And then the concaves aren't quite as deep, a little more traditional single to inset double. And so that just kind of keeps the board not too stuck to the wave face, and a little more bend in it lets you just tag it and release the fins and pull a tighter arc. And so that was my kind of, from the design point of view. And then Jacob's going crazy on this board, like all over the place you've been
Yeah.
with this board.
It's been super fun. This board's actually been to Europe, to Portugal, did a good amount of surfing out there. Then from there I struck down over to the Outer Banks and got some really fun barrels, good turns. Things been to Hawaii, Rocky Point, taken out off the wall, pipeline. I mean, it's basically
Did you
for
say
me.
Portugal?
Yeah,
already?
Portugal.
Yeah.
Over in
There's
Portugal.
sick air from Portugal.
Yep. There was
So-
lots of fun sessions to be had on this board. And I mean, throughout all the versions that we had, now this is number 4, right? I mean, it's been a cool learning process with you and being able to up my surfing and also impress some of my friends. You know, they're like, whoa, you know, what are these
That's
things
the
that you're
best
adding?
thing,
What's the magic you got on over here? So, I mean, it's been super, super fun. But yeah, very versatile. Even though some of those barrels that I had too, I was talking to Todd, I've been able to figure out this little sweet spot in this board that almost any barrel I'm in, I feel so confident to be able to maneuver it in and come out, and the speed this thing has is just incredible.
For a twin fin, yeah.
For a
Some of the
twin
barrels
fin,
have been
yeah.
so deep, and like riding it way up here, you
Yep.
can see there's compressions here and even way up here from how you shift forward in the barrel, which is rad. And then this one too, we worked on getting that perfect weight and
Yep.
flex pattern. So we tried a few different, kind of foams and glassing layups. This one we finally settled on the Magic combo, which has held up good for how long this board's been around and is still full of life. But I just did a single, it's a poly blank, ultralight blank. I'm gonna keep that part a secret so I don't give away all my formula. But a single layer on the bottom, 4-ounce warp glass, and then a single layer on the deck, actually, is stuff called fast glass, which is a S-glass D-size weave that lets it be a normal 4-ounce weight, but the grade of the glass is just a real high grade. So we just put a single layer on there, and if you think about it, the concept makes a lot of sense because you have a single layer here, as opposed to 2 layers here, 1 layer here, which can stiffen a board up. One layer lets a board really spring back and forth against itself, so the flex pattern is really lively, but it is also really balanced. And so that's a formula we came up with too. And you can see there's sweet spots all crushed in all around, but nothing's de-lammed, no buckles. And this thing's been like to hell and back, in a good way.
Yeah, no,
and so that's been a really cool thing to see for me too, because that's kind of been our experimental, journey with the materials to enhance the performance of the board too. So we both kind of been on that journey together as well to come up with this.
I mean, like you were saying, this thing's been in heavy beach breaks, big point breaks, the wave pool, which surprisingly is actually a pretty heavy wave when you go over the falls, and I mean, it's stayed perfectly in shape. I told Todd today when I came in, I couldn't believe how good a shape this board is in for how much that it's been through. It's really amazing. I mean, the materials that Todd's been using, the secret stuff that you're talking about, is really cool stuff.
Was this the board you had in New York?
This is the board I had in New York. Yes.
Sick.
Yeah, New York, like everywhere.
And I'm
Like
talking
it's
about
kind of
it was,
the own, like this, the board you ride in everything, everywhere,
Yeah.
all the time.
Yeah, I mean, my buddy, I remember when I paddled out on our second session in New Jersey, and I was riding another Proctor. It was
The blue one,
the blue one,
Ghost.
which I love, amazing board. But something about this board, I know how to maneuver it really well in the barrel. I like being up forward because I have this little sweet spot. I was telling Todd, like if you're getting back in the foam ball, or if you're too deep, I know perfectly how to stall it, come out. Yeah, this board is going through these big barrels, and when I came out of some, my buddy's like, "What size board are you on again? Like, what's going on with that?" Like,
A lot of times I think in the tube, compact
Mhm.
is to the advantage, where the regular shortboard or regular shortboard dimensions for you is 5'11", 6'0"
Yep.
range. This is only 5'9", but that compactness, lets you get back on the foam ball. But
You got that.
It's got that like a little bit extra foam thickness
Nice for
in the
paddling
center
and
for
everything.
paddling, getting in there. It's got the beak, so you got a little extra thickness carried through here, so kind of lets you fudge in a little bit easier,
Yeah.
and that's rad. And then being 5'9", 1988, 2.5, and what are you, like 6 foot?
I'm 6'1".
6'1",
6'1", 175 pounds.
Yeah, so and this is 29.2, and originally we're like, I think 29.5 or 30, that was too
You
much.
started out
And
with
then we
30.
scaled it back to like 28.5, that wasn't quite, and then 29, and then 29.2, and that's like,
Magic number.
yeah.
Yeah, that's
So
the
all
magic
these
number.
different things, how they factor in is just really cool, like, tuning up the shape, even the rail volume too.
Yeah.
We did some
Yep.
stuff with the version 1 Twinstitch, has a fuller rail. This one, we kind of pinched it down a little more so it knifes over, especially back here in the tail. We thinned this out quite a bit,
Mhm.
so that really knifes in, back your toe side, engaging with the rail and the fin in here. And the Twinstitch is also, it's like MR style back fins
Mhm.
with the small trailer fin. And so that's the go-to on this.
You know what else, Todd, I didn't tell you about that flipping the board back over?
Mhm.
Is on any other board that hasn't been a Proctor, tail cancer happens
Right.
straight away.
And then as soon as you get that crack,
It's done. But I mean, this thing, for the amount of weight I put back there in those barrels, turns everything, and I'm pretty heavy-footed. I mean,
that's killer.
It's killer.
You
It's
can see it's
shit.
crushed out, but it's
but it's
like,
holding though.
crushed out, but not dismayed.
Yeah. Yes. Exactly. No, this is the.
This is good
magic
carbon.
word.
I actually get this carbon from Australia,
Oh,
where a
okay.
lot of companies, they'll get basically tissue paper dyed black and put it on there for show.
Really?
And it doesn't do
I
anything.
didn't
Yeah.
know that.
Yeah. It's a little dark, dirty secret of the industry.
Oh,
But this carbon is actual carbon. It's actually like a 3.5 ounce, so it's not
Okay.
so heavy that it stiffens up the tail. So it's light enough to flex with the board,
Mm.
and it's an actual fiber, not just a like showpiece put on there.
Yeah.
And so,
The
and
real-
for
real
single
deal.
layers, for it to hold up there, just that strategic placement of, carbon right where you're going to be stepping. So the strategic placement of the carbon back here, even with the foam that's a ultralight foam core, single layer, that comes in really key, so that you're not, stepping through, putting a buckle here, because one of the death spots for a board, besides just a buckle through the middle, obviously, but one of the equally death spots is if you crease or crack through, on your heel side or your toe side, right there on the rail, the board's never quite the same again. And so by doing this, it really gives it, that extra where, getting another year out of a magic board, as opposed to like, oh my gosh, this board's magic, and you're afraid to even ride it.
I think
Because-
another 2 years maybe, or 3
No,
years even,
yeah.
right? I mean, but where this board's at and the shape it's in, it's like.
But
it's
how
got a lot
often
of
have you
use.
heard the standard be like, not from here,
Yeah.
but like just in general, which doesn't need to be this way, but how often still to this day do you hear across the board like, oh, it's a magic board, and
Until-
then it buckled, I was so
Yeah.
bummed. And it's like, that doesn't
Another thing to go off that, Todd, is actually on other boards that I rode before you, the fin boxes kept coming out. Especially riding 2+1, right? You're putting so much pressure on those two big fins back here, and I mean, I'm heavy-footed, and I think I put a lot of power
And the
into
bigger
a turn.
fin, that's more leverage, and it can make the boxes crack. So actually, I'm glad you
And
brought
for the
that
first
up.
time with Todd's boards, I've never had a box come out or anything. They've stayed in, there's no cracks or anything, so whatever you're doing there too is pretty amazing,
You know what? I'm glad you said whatever you're doing there, because I was about to spill the beans
Okay,
and tell my
spill-
little secret,
spill-
but I don't
spill
think
the
I'm
beans.
going to.
Okay.
I do something special
All
with
right.
the fin boxes.
Another-
very different from what anybody else does, and it keeps them from cracking.
So yeah, there's that part of it too, that I mean, I've been so stoked on being able to have a board and travel to places when you're seeing firing waves and you're like, hopefully the board is gonna hold up, and then Todd's board is like, all right, these are holding up for a long time, so.
Tell us about the beak and,
Beak nose,
and
yeah.
retro,
Yeah.
and how you're into the retro things, because I know that
So,
about
I
you.
mean, I look up to a lot of the guys that surfed in the 70s, and I mean, living in Malibu too, like, I have all these old surf books, and my dad's actually from Newport Beach, but he told me these stories about going to Malibu in the 60s and the 70s. So living there now, it's pretty cool to be part of that culture, and as well, I mean, it's funny to talk about style. I mean, this board's incredible as well, but running down the beach, I mean, it's pretty cool having a board that looks like this and have this cool retro beak nose, because for me, I'm all about style, and that's how, why we surf. We
Yeah.
perfect our styles, you perfect your style of surfboards and everything, and it's pretty cool having something like that from the 70s, and been able to take something that was old and mix it in with a new school, you know?
Right.
So that's kind of what we're all trying to.
And the purpose too is it keeps that foam, it keeps some more foam thickness
Yeah.
up on the nose. So when you crunch the board down, the Twinstitch has a little fuller nose too. So it's kind of crunched down, a little bit fuller nose, and then a little more thickness, and then the beak caters to that. So it is like a throwback design that you're able to grab from the past and like
bring it to the future. Yeah.
future, and it's functional. So
Yeah.
like styly and like groovy and rad looking, kind of like functional art type of a concept.
Yeah, that makes sense.
You know?
Yeah. And with that, to feed off that as well, I mean, some of these barrels that I had in New Jersey and these places around the world, when I probably should be on something more like a 6.0 or 6.1.
Weren't you saying guys were running up the beach?
Yeah,
on like
yeah.
6'4",
For instance,
6'3"?
in New Jersey, there's some pretty heavy waves, and guys were on maybe step ups from 6'2" to 6'4" to 6'5", and then I come down running out, and these guys are looking at me like I'm crazy because they're like, "You're gonna take that small of a board out there?" And then sure enough, I mean, I was able to paddle it really well, get into waves. Like, you know, when you're at the top of that wave and you need to get into it and power through it and stuff, having this extra little foam that doesn't affect the way the board performs, it just affects the way you're able to paddle. It
Especially
helps.
in tubes.
Especially
that
in
little
tubes.
like
Yeah.
ramp in behind the peak is so
Mhm.
important in that split second.
Right? Half
Yeah.
a second, you know, sometimes is all that takes for you to make or not make the barrel. So that beak nose is really special. Obviously the way it looks too is really cool. So,
So I think we covered it, huh?
yeah, yeah.
That's the Twinstitch version 4.
And maybe we'll
Yeah.
have a version 5 here coming
Yeah,
out
maybe.
soon, and a little review in another year.
So thanks.
Yeah, of course.
It's been
Thanks for having me,
fun.
Todd.
It's been a fun
Been a
process,
fun-
bro.
Fun time. Thanks, Carissa. Thanks for everything. Seriously,
Thanks,
you guys
guys.
are the best. The Proctor family is the best in the business.
Thanks, brother.